Hey guys, welcome to Friendship Files with JMG. Now, I have here my friend David. We kind of wanted to explore a couple different avenues. Last week we went a little bit too in depth into relationships and things like that. This week I kind of wanted to go into a lot of the stuff that happens right before a lot of relationships happen. College and kind of what goes right in between successes and everything like that. Now, he's been in college for quite a bit. He's going to be double majoring in two different degrees majors. He'll talk more about that here in a bit. But kind of wanted to get a different perspective with somebody that has been in college, has kind of had a little bit of experiences and everything like that, and go through it. So, how is college life?
Define what is
I
like what
mean,
aspects.
just how would you kind of describe your life in college? Like, is it how is it different than how it was in high school?
Uh, it was weird to explain. It was definitely very emotional because you think you're gonna get all this freedom, that you don't have in high
Yeah.
school, and then you get it and you realize that it's kind of a hard thing that you realize really quick is that no one's after you, no one's reminding you about the homework or anything. Like you're just, and man, you're an adult now. You make your own decisions. Like don't even lift your hand to go to the bathroom. Just
You just
just
go.
just go, which is like very weird aspect of things that it was definitely different.
So, what would you think if you were to do this all again? What would be the thing you wish people told you before coming into college?
I mean, I would take that as because I didn't get that much advice, so I'm gonna take it as what I would say
Yeah.
to someone. It's gonna be expensive. I
How
mean, you
so?
you don't think about it, and just at the end of the day, it gets pretty expensive.
What's been the most expensive? Has it been the college itself or the actual like things around it, if that makes sense?
So I mean, one of the more expensive thing, tuition is just tuition. It's just gonna be stuck. It they're gonna make their money. But somewhere where you could save money, but they just screw you over. Sometimes it feels like it, at least. Textbooks.
How do you think
Just
you can save on those?
what is very hard because most of the teachers sometimes require the latest edition. They're like, hey, even though it only has changed slightly a bit over a year, they just reprint them and they sell more.
Over and over again. Okay.
Which a lot of times they have the same material, so it just gets very expensive.
Is
But
it because I know that like, you see TikToks and everything like that. They tell you, hey, go to this, go to that, or you can buy these used textbooks. Like, is any of that true?
uh, well, for some part, yes. You always have those clickbaits where they just want to have people view. So no matter whether it's one click for 3 seconds to wait to find out, and other ones are genuinely they're out there to help you. Like there are websites where you can like get textbooks like PDFs and stuff like that that would save you money. Like if the teacher doesn't require you to have it in class, just find yourself out there, and some of those do help you. They lead you right to the source instead of having to go through the fake pages where like it looks like that's what you want, but it's they're trying to give you something different. They just want to
That's fair.
people visiting.
So I know college can kind of be scary for a lot of people. It can kind of get overwhelming. I mean, especially if you're going out of state. I know you stayed in the same state and everything like that with family and everything. But I mean, especially if you're going out of state, I can see how that can be very overwhelming very quickly because you're going into a whole new city, whole new state. Sometimes in a lot of these colleges, especially even around here, I mean, you go into like Mizzou and things like that. That's in kind of the middle of nowhere in Missouri with family 3, 4 hours away. So have you experienced any kind of hazing or anything like that, like your first year in college?
So that's a very interesting question. I mean, we can narrow down to the psychological level where some trying something new and different. It's always scary to everyone, especially like you've been in high school for 4 years. You're about to, go to college. That's definitely different. When you get there, you're expecting, at least personally, like watching all the movies of high school and like then how college was gonna be. It's like, oh my God, it's gonna be like this, and it was definitely not like that. No
Talk to me
hazing
more.
or anything. Just
What's kind of different on what you thought it was going to be compared to how it is?
I thought it was gonna be more colorful, more playful, more like more yeah, let's go to university type of thing, it I've not experienced that as much. Maybe it's just the school that I chose, but it's a lot of people just they need to get where they need to get, and they're just tired of being there. You can see it in their
So
faces.
it's kind of like how a lot of people explain New York. where they are just they know you're there, they don't care you're there. Go to where you gotta go, and you're done, right?
Yeah, like essentially, you're just an extra face. It's like, hey man, I just need to get through you. My class is like back there. It's cold. I'm hungry.
So
Type
how?
of vibe.
So I know you mentioned you're hungry. How is it? How is eating in college? Because I know obviously, again, you live here, you live with close to family. But have you heard any stories of people that don't go to college, like college nearby, and then they have to rely on meal plans and everything like that? Now, especially when you're a college kid, you don't have much time to work, and when you do, you're super tired. And not everybody can do work and college, especially if you're trying to graduate earlier. Have you heard of the meal plans and everything like that in college? Like, how are they?
So I have heard of the meal plans. It kind of comes included with a room and board, or it's just another fee, like an extra. It I heard it's very expensive, and to be honest, like you don't get what you pay for. Like, not that you don't get what you pay for, but it's not as good as you expect it to be. You know, like for me personally, it was like when you see the movies, they have so many choices of this and that, and they have more
Everything,
abundance. But that's not
everything just
the
kind of
reality,
closed.
just because of the costs and stuff like that.
All right, so what's kind of sororities like? I mean, what's kind of your take on frats and sororities? Do you think that's kind of a crucial part of colleges? Like, do you think they're overhyped? Have you personally tried to join one? What's kind of your thoughts on them?
So it's very interesting. A lot of people, like, no matter who you ask, they always have a different take on it,
Yep.
and it's very different. Different, definitely a good question. See, my take on it is that personally, I would like to join one. Like when I first went in, I thought it would have been cool, like a new experience.
Right.
But a lot of them say they needed money, like as an entry fee. So I'm like, ooh, I'm already tight on the budget, so stuff like that and do and then as the time progressed, I realized that some majors have it a little bit easier than others, so they're able to have a lot more free time, and those seem to be the people that kind of like join those.
What's kind of the majors that typically join frats?
Um, I don't want to like single out anyone.
I mean, at
Just some of
because
those, just any of those that will allow you more time than other majors, the
so
ones that
you
will require more study time.
so you'd probably say like a business major probably has more free time than let's say an engineer major,
And I mean,
right?
I could be biased, depending on the professor and all that stuff. Some professors can give more homework than others. But I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna mention any of those just to be safe. I'm not sure.
Okay, so how does it feel to be like in college? So, do you think it helps more to be an extrovert or an introvert? Like just in the social aspects, meeting people? Because college, I feel like the biggest aspect of college is kind of networking to a degree. But can networking kind of put you to a point where you're not networking and you're just kind of goofing around way too much, kind of just having way too much fun, and then that takes place of what the reason on why you are at college? Because at the end of the day, we're younger, we go to college, we think of college, say, hey, college is supposed to be fun. You see movies, you're like, hey, oh my gosh, I'm gonna goof off, I'm gonna party every day, and then I'm gonna happen to go to class like once a week. I'm sure that's not college, right? How is it different?
So sadly, that is not college at all. And it's sad to see that sometimes people learn that the hard way because they think and see under the movies and like, oh yeah, this is definitely how I should behave. This is definitely how I'm gonna be. And then they don't show up to class. They mark you off for not being there. You start not learning. Rolls around midterm, and you failed. And you start losing a lot of those people like early on just because of that. But networking actually helps you. Being an extrovert, I feel like it helps you a lot, especially like you start talking to people, of course, you start seeing like what they do, what they're better at. Like you might not need it at the beginning. Like some of the courses are easy and you can do it by yourself. You're like, I got my group friends at home. I can just finish school, go home and just hang out with them. What you don't realize is after a while, you start climbing higher classes. They become harder. And those people you met earlier and started talking to them are the ones that help each other out and what sees each other to the end.
You know how many college students graduate in 4 years?
I must say it's not as high as we
What
expected.
do you think it is?
I must say For sure, less than 80%. You know, that's a safe estimate.
So you think
If I really wanted to say personally, but that I don't want to be wrong, I would say like less than 60%.
what would you say is like, if you were to pick a percentage on how many students graduate in 4 years, what would that percentage be? And I'm talking about just people that have 4-year degrees. I'm not talking about people that obviously can't graduate in
Right.
4 years. What do you think that percentage is?
I'm going to go with my risky number, 60.
It is 33%.
Yeah. I knew it was lower.
33% of people that go to college that have a 4-year degree actually graduate within those 4 years. I mean, that's kind of crazy to think. I mean, you pay all this money for college and you think, hey, in 4 years I'm done, in 4 years I'm good, in 4 years I'm ready to be out of here and start my career, make over $100,000. I mean, that's the story we get told as kids. That's kind of the promise as when we're young. You know, you work hard, you go to college, and you make good money. But I mean, 33% of us are the only ones who are actually even graduating college in 4 years. And how many of us are stuck in a loop? For one of the reasons that I think college is pushed too much, where it might make sense for maybe 33% of people, 40% of people to go immediately after high school, but it might make more sense for others to take 6 months or maybe even a year to kind of think on what they want. I mean, we're kind of expecting 18-year-olds to take on $50, $100, $200,000 in debt on an idea that they had while they were young. And
Yeah,
that
that's
idea that
definitely
they had
true.
while they were young is supposed to shape them for the rest of their lives. But then those same people can't go apply for simple things, can't apply for a house, can't apply for a car.
I mean, think about it right now. You can go to war, but you can't drink a beer at 18.
It's just kind of crazy to think that, I mean, you get into these situations, you're like, hey, only 33% of us are going to graduate. And I honestly think it has to do a lot with, just how and what we're kind of taught and kind of what we are kind of is instilled within. Because here's another crazy stat, because I don't think it's honestly just a problem with college. I think it's also a problem with what's being taught in schools and then what's inactively being taught at home. Because Asians are normally a pretty good stat. Everyone thinks Asians are super smart. What percentage do you think of Asians actually graduated and actually enrolled in high school? I mean, in college,
Like here
just in general,
in general, in the whole world.
in the USA.
Oh, in the USA. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the. I must say a lot higher.
Asians typically enroll about an 80% into college, which is about 15 to 20% higher than every other demographic group. I feel like a lot of that is, I mean, you look at different demographics and everything like that. It is very instilled upon that you have to go to college and everything like that. But while some may be unhappy, they do have that goal where you have to finish it out and everything. Now, my question is to you is, whenever you have all that kind of push through on within college and everything, do you think it's better to be alone, like be out of a relationship, or do you think it's better to be in a relationship in college? Or how can either affect you?
So if you target just relationship like a girlfriend or boyfriend type of situation.
Correct.
Okay, so I say it can be either good or bad. It just depends on who you have. Because I gotta say, it can be really building when you're really tired from, especially if you work. Let's say, you're working and going to school like most of the average person. It's gonna be, you get tired, and you go home and you're so exhausted, and having someone there to talk to you, listen to what you went through, kind of like be there
Having
with
helping
you,
hand,
and
yeah.
even just helping you around the house. That's just, I mean, you get home, you don't want to do anything, you just want to go to sleep. So
And I feel like that can be a lot of the things that kind of happens with a lot of people, is that they kind of get instilled and say, hey, they kind of get lazy in a lot of different aspects. That's why the biggest things that guys actually get a bad rap for, especially when they're in college, is dirty rooms, dirty everything.
Yeah.
Because, they just got out of high school. They just got all this freedom, right? They just got told, hey, go into the world, go be free. And a lot of them aren't even in their own state. So they're like, hey, I'm never going to meet these people again after I'm out of here. So they say, hey, whenever I'm home, I'm messing off and everything. So I kind of get why a lot of it is kind of just skewed in a lot of aspects. What do you think is kind of the biggest issue with college?
Like in that aspect, if I were just
Just in
talking to.
general.
So, if, like basing off first of that, I would say like especially for guys, we're not used to cleaning up as much growing up, and then giving all this freedom. Sometimes we tend to forget. That's just one of the things. And then in general, college, I think it's definitely a positive, very overall positive experience. You get to see a lot of things, you get to experience a lot of things, you get to meet a lot of new people from different places, different backgrounds, what they think, how they think. They kind of start shaping you in a sense, you know. You kind of just start hearing their ideas, how they see the things in the world, how they are from, back home and all that stuff. It starts shaping you. I mean, of course, you have your rough days where
But what would
you're
you say is the biggest issue with college, though?
I say cost. If it had to be simplified to one thing, it's just cost. Sometimes people cannot afford it. I would say there's probably bright minds out there just can't afford to go, so they can't afford to shine.
But do you think cost is the only problem with college, though?
Like in what sense?
Because here's my thought process. I would say that if cost was less, yes, more people would go. But I kind of also think that just the whole aspect of college, taking how long it does, what it is that you typically learn, and what it is kind of instilled. Because, I mean, college is almost a continuation of high school in a lot of ways. You are forced to learn things that don't really apply to what you're majoring in, that aren't going to have a lot of effect in your real life world. And I honestly feel like a lot of it can be kind of a money grab just because you have to take those classes just because, right? Like, for example, there's no point on why somebody that is majoring in business and is majoring in something that doesn't have to do anything with, let's say, a certain type of science or something like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe everyone should have a general understanding of a lot of things because, again, that's how you can have intelligent conversations with different people and everything like that. But going into too deep of an understanding and forcing you to take years of classes that have nothing to do with what you're majoring in, then at that point, that's what I personally think is the biggest issue with college. I really think you could realistically learn the same amount of things that you're going to actually apply into your daily life from college in 2 years or a year, because you can actually go to the classes that are meant for that. Now, all the other prerequisites and things like that, yeah, cool. Are they nice to have to meet new people, get new experiences? Sure, but they aren't the reason why college is what it is. College is supposed to be, you go here, you learn this experience, you learn more about the career path you want to go into,
Right.
and then in your career path, that's where you kind of grow that stuff that you just learned. Because now more than ever, jobs are asking for experience over just degrees. But the problem is, after you're 18, you go to college, you spend 4 years in college. Now you're 22. You're 22 with $100,000 in debt for the average person, right? Now you go
Yep.
now you go into a job, and you're like, "Hey, I have a college degree." Well, you don't have experience. Okay. Well, let me get some experience. What do you need? Well, you're starting in a starting job. Okay, cool. Well, let's look at option B, a person that never went to college, a person that just decided to say, hey, in most fields, now obviously you can't go be a doctor, you can't go be, a nurse, you can't be a pilot without taking classes, right? But let's talk about degrees, jobs that most people are going to do that don't really require anything of next level understanding, that aren't going to be endangering many people, right? Let's say that you want to go run a business or things like that. You can work your way up from a company in 4 years and be higher than the person that came in with that college degree. You can be their boss. And since now you have those 4 years of experience, I personally believe that 4 years of experience actually comes in more handy than somebody that actually got a 4 year degree. Yeah, you show that you went to class and that you determined you got the degree, but what does it really give you a leg up on?
I gotta say, it's definitely feels like that sometimes, especially the money grab with the first 2 years. Sometimes it does feel like I could go without these classes, you know. I feel like they definitely should be definitely more accessible because you definitely need the people that are graduate, you know, even if it's still 30%, 30% a larger amount of people, it's still more
Exactly.
people graduating, right? But I think we still need them just because you need the high education people that for stuff that you might not be able to do that needs to be repaired for your infrastructure, like engineering, doctors, stuff like that. Like electrical engineers. They need to keep the power grid going. Without no power, none of this, right?
100%.
So stuff like that. I mean, but I do agree that sometimes working gets you ahead, and then you finish college. You're all right. I did all this work, and it can be disheartening to say, "Hey, you're starting back here." When
Well, what I'm saying from that is kind of like, well, in college, you go into, let's say you want to be an engineer, but you take all these other classes that don't really have to do with anything of being an engineer, right? And now you go be an engineer. And if you would have just gotten the experience from someone that is currently working at the company, let's say that, and obviously this is not how the world works in most aspects, most companies, but let's say companies said, hey, instead of you going to college and working at this job, I'm actually going to train you on all the things you need to know and things you need to learn on after you show that you have, let's say you take a basic understanding. Here's my take. Let's say you make college 2 years. Let's say you make college a 2-year requisite for what normally 4-year classes are. And you go in and you take all the understanding. You learn all the math, because obviously in a lot of engineering courses, you got to learn the math. Let's say you got to learn all the, ways to figure out different problems and everything. You learn all the basic understanding. Because I feel like the biggest problem with college is there's just a lot of wasted time. And in my opinion, I'm all into business. Time is money, right? And when you are wasting time on learning things that aren't going to be directly impacting the field you're going into, it kind of then hinders you in saying, okay, how did this benefit me? Now, can you say, hey, I want to learn more into this degree? Cool. Then that 2-year degree turns into a 4-year degree. But then that's what kind of helps you say, okay, this is what all I needed. This is all the information I needed, let's say for a higher position in that job or something like that, right? Because I feel like if you have a 2-year degree and you've learned about, let's say, engineering for 2 years, and then you go into an apprentice role at a company for 6 months to a year, I feel like that person is going to be better suited than a person that comes in after a 4-year degree, right? And starts from zero. I would take the person that has 2 years in engineering, did just all the core stuff that they needed, and then did a 6-month course with the company, compared to a person that has been, yeah, cool, they learned about engineering, but they don't know how it actually applies to that specific company. So it doesn't really.
So you're mixing two things. You're saying the 2-year college of like if someone just take 2 years, or someone just getting started without no college degree and starting zero.
I'm kind of saying for some jobs you can do it without, but I'm saying for something like engineering you can't go without any college. I mean, most people aren't smart enough to just automatically just know calculus and everything off the top of their head. So they would have to learn all that. So I'm saying you could fast track all that within 2 years.
I'd say you probably could. Yes, I agree with you there.
So what I'm saying is for jobs that would require something like that, you fast track it within 2 years. For jobs that you don't really need anything, then you have like an apprentice role. Let's say you're wanting to be, a partner at a company, things like that. You don't really need the high level of college degree. You kind of just need to know how to build relationships with other companies and things like that, because that's going to be the biggest way on how you can build business.
I said, well, I agree with you there. And it's true, personality is what gets you a lot of times. But if you can't climb up that high, you can't rub with the people that are making the decisions.
That's fair.
So, and then I agree, like someone that has a college degree, right? And then when they start compared to someone who's been trained, I agree, they're gonna know a lot more than the engineer, right? Or this is the example we're using. But the engineer will overpass over time. That person just got stuck there because they just trained on that, like let's say that specific machine. They know it just to do this, like by repetition, essentially,
Fair enough.
And I'm not saying that that's everyone. Some people are actually smart enough they can figure it out without even going to college, right? But they're just used to just doing that, while someone that study it knows the science behind it, right? That's why we do math and stuff like that. So many problems is not so we know how to solve it in everyday life, but more than we understand the way to think. Essentially, the way to figure out things. So engineer will understand how the stuff works. So if something were to go wrong, or it's something you're not seeing, or something you haven't used to, they're able to like backtrack themselves and say, hey, I know this works because of this, because of this.
So then
and
you're able to build
they're
yourself.
able to
That
figure out the
that makes a lot of sense because with that being the case, you can kind of say, hey, you are going to stay here, you're here now, but because I know on how everything will be working behind the scenes, then I can actually build a solution to a problem that hasn't arisen yet. So I actually completely agree with that. So with how the cost of college is, do you think loans should be forgiven? If you are an adult and you take a loan and you say, hey, you went to college, you took all the classes, you agreed on the prices, do you think they should be forgiven? Or do you think college should be free?
See, this is a very loaded question where a lot of people have a lot of different opinions out there. You know, they feel this or they feel that. It's a very strong opinion. I definitely feel that not to be free, you know, because I feel like there should be some repercussion against people who just want to go there and just waste time, you know. Like if they really want to, I feel like they shouldn't be penalized either, you know.
Right.
Like they should have the access, and we should strive to do that because if you think about it, the more people get study, the more people can see how things work, right? How we're talking, and maybe they can come out with something new, something different, something that might benefit the rest of us as a society, you know?
Right.
Like imagine like when the iPhone came out, you know? All those engineers were evolving all that stuff and
Yeah.
now we take it for granted. We're just have it on our pockets. They're mini computers just in our pockets.
Yeah.
We take it for granted. So I feel like there could be a very far outreach of where we could be in as a society. That's where I see the benefit in.
That's fair. I mean, what made you choose? Because I know obviously we're talking about engineers because you're trying to be an engineer. What kind of made you choose that career path?
So I definitely went in wishing I'd know more, honestly, because when you go in out of high school, they don't tell you kind of anything, and what colleges portray to be aren't what you really see and live on a day-to-day life, you know, in college. But personally, just I gotta say that one's a hard question to answer.
So you didn't think, hey, I want to go. I mean, because what type of engineer do you want to be?
So right now I'm studying to be a mechanical engineer, and I guess just the basic reason now I'm thinking more about it. The basic reason I can say I chose this is I like taking stuff apart.
Okay.
I like computers, and I'm pretty good at math. You know, I'm like I'm all right. I know understand stuff, so I put those two together. I'm like engineering.
Fair enough.
So
So how do you stay productive in a role that I feel like there's a lot of repetition, right? I'm guessing there's a lot of repetition because you have to learn the products. I mean, you can't be an engineer and not know the math behind it. You kind of spoke about that. How do you stay productive and how do you keep yourself energized?
I gotta say that is again one of the hard points of colleges, especially if you work as well. Like your time gets reduced significantly, and I'm talking about work time, travel time. That even adds up. Sometimes we don't think about that, but 30 minutes to a job and 30 minutes back, that's still an hour gone out of the day.
You know,
And when you spend half of your day going to school, it
that can add up pretty
it starts
quickly.
adding up really quick, and you don't have time. The way to stay productive, honestly, is having friends. Because like when you get in study groups, you know, sometimes you feel tired. If you were by yourself, you were like, you know what, I'm calling it a night. I'm going home. But when
And
you're
it
with your
just feels-
friends, you're just kind of like, I don't want to leave because they're here, and they're probably thinking the same thing. You know, they want to go home, but you kind of keep pushing yourself and helping yourself, especially when you have your low days and stuff like
Oh,
that.
I
They
get
can.
that. I mean, I know there's a lot of mental health disorders in college. I mean, I think that the study is that 40, no, 34% of college students have an anxiety disorder just because, you get anxiety for a lot of different things. There's deadlines all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
younger kids are pushing the deadlines all the time. Papers due tonight and you start doing it, 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago,
Been
things
there.
like that. So how do you kind of deal with mental health in college?
You know, I gotta say that's definitely the number does not surprise me, just because I mean, just talking
And
to
I
friends and
honestly
stuff like that.
kind of feel like it's low.
Well, I feel it's low. That's still pretty high. It might seem like a number, but that's still really high when you start getting the actual number of people. But I think it just has to do with again with the fact that you mentioned. It's just you go from high school not having deadlines, not being that strict to now you're in college, you have deadlines. If you pass it, some professors say, hey, you missed it. Even if it's by a minute or a second, they won't take it.
Seriously?
Like zero. Yeah. Yeah, you missed by some professors are like, it's 11:59 p.m. If you turn in 1 minute late, zero. Sorry. I let you know well in advance and you're not used to it.
That's insane.
And sometimes, especially like in the first 1, 2, even starting the third year, but mostly the first 2 years, they're very homework intensive. Like I feel like death by homework sometimes.
Do you think kind of the purpose for that, and I've kind of read about this before, is to weed out the people that shouldn't be in college?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, I mean, I really feel like part of the reason for college is to not let the people that really shouldn't be in those fields be in those fields. Because, I mean, here's the thing. It takes a special kind of person to wake up every day, take all those classes, do all the homework over and over and over again for 4, 6, or maybe 8 to 12 years, depending on what degree, how far you're pursuing it and everything like that. I mean, just imagine a surgeon. I mean, just imagine how long a surgeon has to be in school, medical school. Then you're in, you're an intern, then you're a residency. I mean, you're learning until you're like 32. I mean, you can't have a doctor that, doesn't know anything. And there's a lot of kids that go into medical school and then they're basically weeded out from medical school because it's even harder. So I do feel like college does have a big point where they're just trying to weed you out. They're trying to make sure that, those people don't go into careers. And if you're graduating with their degree, that they're saying, hey, this degree is kind of ours. We have a very high standard for it.
No, yeah, I definitely agree.
So the bigger schools and everything like that, I have kind of read that whenever you get into your like third year and a half, you're in your final year now.
Yes.
Do you feel like homework is not as intensive because they know now that you are serious? Do you feel like teachers are nicer now because are you having different professors, or how does it kind of work?
It does feel like it's a little bit more leaning off, more easing off. I kind of feel like they kind of start treating you as an adult and not like babying you with homework and not having to do homework. I feel like it does get easier, but at the same time, they expect you not to try no repetition. They kind of expect, hey, you should know the basics, man, now. And if you don't know, you should have the tools of knowing how to figure it out,
Right.
And instead of giving you like repetitive homework, they give you a problem and now you have to tackle it. So it might not, like, if you understand it and you understood the years past, you might not have to do as much work. You're like, okay, this makes sense. And you do it quick. So therefore, you're done. It seems easy to you. But someone else who just struggled a little more, he's going to have to do a little bit of research more on the side and be able to complete it still in a good time. And you have more free time. So it does feel like it gets easier at the end.
So does it feel like if you're getting to the finish line, you start getting less stressed because you're like, gosh, I'm almost done. I mean, but does it almost get more stressful whenever you start thinking of, gosh, I had this bubble of school, I had high school, I had college, but now I have to go into the real world where I'm actually in my degree that I spent all my life for, that I spent all this money for, and now you're like, gosh, will I be happy?
I gotta say, by the time you're out of school, you're reaching that goal. You're like, hey man, I'm just ready to be done. Because I mean, it is very intensive. I'm not gonna lie, it's intensive, and you have to do this so much homework and all that stuff. It catches on, especially over the years. That by the time you're almost done, you're like, I am ready. I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do by now. You have seen those, and you're ready to go to work because it just, it'll be a lot better. And when you get there, you'll realize it too.
100%. I mean, here's a quick stat for you. I think kind of speaking with college depression and everything like that, 150,000 kids a year, which seems, again, really low, have an alcohol problem, start an alcohol problem every year of college. I mean, that's a really big amount of kids that just start having alcohol problems. And that's just the ones that recognize it. I mean, alcohol is one of the biggest things of college. And when you think about it, technically, you should really only be drinking when you're 21. I mean, think of all the kids that obviously aren't reporting it because they've already been drinking and things like that. I think that's kind of one of the biggest things. And college can be scary. But I do want to say I appreciate you coming on today and
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
kind of speaking in your knowledge. Hopefully college goes great. And for all you guys out there, I know it can be kind of stressful, kind of how it can go through, but it does get better, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. It does. It does.
It does get better. It is worth it. Hopefully,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it's worth it, and it can give you a lot of empowering things and a lot of knowledge, and it kind of makes you feel more like, hey, I'm contributing to my field, and who knows, you might be the next Einstein. If you guys do have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We'll be more than happy to answer, and you guys have a wonderful day.
All right, see ya.